on the stories from men and women who have reached the mature age of 50 plus in life and wish to share their journey from then till now.
Do you have any role models?
Do I have my father? I mean, I talked about him a couple of minutes ago. My father was probably my biggest role model. And he passed away when I was like 40 years old. And even today, I will think to myself, when I have a situation and I'm not quite sure which way to go with it, what to do, I would think to myself, what would my father do? And I think that just sort of makes me think about his life and how he conducted his life. And that gives me a great incentive to know what the right things are to do. They may not be the most popular things to do,
right,
but they were probably the right. But and there was one other person, and that was my 6th grade teacher when I went to Washington School. Her name was Elizabeth Ireland, Miss Ireland. And she was the typical, for her day, school teacher, you know, very straight-laced kind of person. But she just brought a wonderment to life. We used to sing things from Oklahoma. You know, we learned the Gettysburg Address. And, I mean, it was always like, what a wonder to be in her class. I don't know about the other 6th grade classes, because I never experienced any of them. But to me, she was like, what a wonderful person, you know, and she just brought, like, a whole thing about life to you. And I don't know if anybody else in my class felt that way. But my goodness, I still think about Elizabeth Ireland. And
you know, it's funny.
Like 100
I think
years ago that I was in 6th grade. Not quite.
But I think it's funny. I think there often is a teacher who is at a certain age, and it isn't always at the same age, but there's some teacher who is influential, who just hits you at the right time, that made you want to learn more, that made you more curious about life, that just was someone who was different than the other people in your life, that was encouraging your own joy and your sense of adventure.
And I think along the way, I mean, those are the 2 people that really stand out.
Interesting.
But there are other people along the way that do have an influence on you. Maybe not as great, but there will be some sort of influence, and you draw from that. Because none of us lives in a vacuum.
No.
You know, we are all surrounded by life, if you will. What goes on in the world, what goes on in the town, what goes on in your house. We're all surrounded by that stuff. And you really draw from all of that, or you give to all of that in one way or another. And since you can't live in a vacuum, you are affected by what goes on in your life. And if you can affect somebody else's life, so much the better.
Right.
I mean, that did happen one time when I was a disc jockey. This young girl started calling me, and she would talk. She was not happy at home. Well, I talked to her for 3 or 4 weeks, and I finally talked to her about she was going to run away from home. And I talked her into not doing it. Well, about 20 years later, I met the same girl.
Oh,
and she thanked me profusely for just being an ear for her to talk to and giving her the advice that I did.
That's great.
So, well, I said, man, that is great.
Well, sometimes you're just in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Life is full of coincidences.
It is. I know you do.
No,
anyway,
I really enjoyed this.
Thanks so much for joining us, Bob. And thank you for joining us for Ageless. And remember that when you're in love with your life, you are ageless.
An interview show highlighting the accomplishments of men and women age 50 and over.